The baboons dare to challenge every predator on the savannah. In just a few moments, what in the brains of these primates makes them so reckless that even the savannah has to hold its breath? The baboon brain. Why do they dare to challenge brutal predators? Dawn has not yet touched the horizon when the savannah of the eastern Serengeti awakens with unmistakable sounds. From the Maruta Valley, the wind carries the sweet, fishy smell of the night hunt, mixed with the sound of antelope hooves hitting the ground, the laughter of hyenas in the dark, the flapping of vulture wings to gain position on the high branches. The vast land spreads out like a never-ending battlefield, where the first light of day does not bring safety, but only exposes how many predators are waiting under the yellow grass. In this place, there is no moment of rest for any creature. Running, fighting, or disappearing are the only three options. In the middle of that harsh land, a troop of baboons was moving along the cracked rock ridge of the valley. Not a single step was careless. Not a single sound was superfluous. The Tagu troop of more than 100 individuals slid across the dry ground like a river of gray fur, full of vigilance. Tagu walked in front, his sturdy body scarred, his shoulders casting shadows on the ground like a silent warning. He was not the biggest, but every slight nod of his head, every glance of his eyes, made the troop adjust their movement. The females held their babies close to their chests, their eyes constantly scanning the four directions, trying to keep their breathing steady in the wind that carried the scent of those who had not left since last night. The young males behind could not hide their impatience. Each leg lift was filled with force, as if waiting for something to appear, so they could immediately rush in. On their mother's back, the young ones clung tightly, their eyes wide open, looking at the savannah as if looking at a world ready to swallow them with just the slightest sound. The ground cracked, red dust clung to their feet, but the pack kept moving forward, each step as taut as a bowstring drawn to its limit. They knew the rules of the place too well. 1 second late, one misstep, one out-of-sync breath was enough for a tiny life to disappear into the grass. And when the wind changed direction, carrying a new, heavier, sharper, salty smell, as if someone had torn through the darkness in front of them, Tagu stopped. His breath hitched. The pack behind him held their breaths immediately. Something was coming. And the savannah had just become more terrifying. Tagu saw them before the pack could turn around. Three hyenas slunk out from the edge of the rocky beach, their yellow eyes locked on an impala carcass that the baboons had just dragged down from the bushes. They didn't charge right away. They took short, low, stealthy steps, as if they believed no one in the savannah would dare stand between them and their meal. Tagu growled low in his throat, a sound so deep that the ground beneath his feet shook slightly. The females immediately pulled their cubs behind them. The pack held their breath, waiting for the hyenas to stop. The sound of the hyenas' hooves pounding the ground was like hammer blows. One of them leaped forward, jaws wide open, ready to snatch the warm kill from the baboon's hands. One more bite and the kill would be gone, and the entire baboon pack would have to face the one with the strongest bone-crushing jaws in the savannah. But this time, it was the baboon who took the initiative. Tagu charged first. No shout, no signal. He just charged like an arrow tearing through the ground, like a storm of gray fur, hissing sharp screeches like broken rocks. And it was the surprise that made the hyenas stop. They had never seen baboons protect their kill, and they were not a priority predator. The hyena changed direction, but Tagu did not give it time to do anything. He jumped up, his arms swinging out to the sides as if he wanted to slash the robber's face. The hyena bit back, but the baboon's charge was so sudden that it landed, took a step back, then turned around and ran away. The other two also scattered in the direction of the wind, turning into three streaks of pale yellow dust that disappeared into the tall grass. The baboon had won. Not by strength, but by a ferocity that made the hyena not dare to try a second time. Tagu stood in the middle of the rocky beach, his shoulders heaving with his breathing, his eyes still watching the grass closing behind the fleeing hyenas. No one in the pack spoke. They were all looking at something rare in the savannah, the small primate that could make the hyenas who laughed at the corpses retreat. And the question popped up, sharp as a spear. If the baboons dared to chase away the hyenas to keep their prey, then, after all, did this species fear any predator? The last shadow of the hyena had just disappeared into the grass when the savannah had not yet caught its breath. The entire baboon pack stood still in a defensive position, as if waiting for a second attack that everyone knew could happen at any moment. The heartbeats of some of the cubs were still beating so fast that it sounded like a small tapping sound in their fur. But Tagu did not. He remained in an attacking position, hands touching the ground, shoulders splayed, breath rushing into his chest as if he wanted to break out again. There was no satisfaction in his eyes at having chased the hyenas away, nor the usual vigilance after a fight, only a cold concentration that silenced the young males behind him. This strange silence was the first consequence. The baboons were not just protecting their prey. They had crossed an invisible line. They had proven that the hyenas, which many considered the nightmare of the savannah, could also be pushed back when needed. And that revealed another truth that few people realized. The baboons understood the weaknesses of their predators better than the predators themselves. They knew hyenas were easily confused when alone and their opponents attacked in unison. They knew hyenas hated head-on charges, not because of pain, but because they were used to being the dominant side, not the side being cornered. That was what made baboons dangerous in the savannah. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, but they read the thoughts of their predators in a way no other animal can. The first sounds came from the ground, a thin but steady vibration, like a heartbeat rising from the savannah. Then the herd of antelopes surged into the light, their slender bodies trembling slightly with each breath of wind. They carried the distinctive scent of unease, a mixture of sweat, fresh grass, and an ancient wariness that ran through their strides. Tagu glanced at the baboon, who had no appetite for antelope meat, but he understood what was making the herd tremble. In the thicker grass, a yellow shadow moved like water. A leopard. Not a blade of grass trembled too much. Not a breath was wasted. It lay low, its muscles taut like strings waiting to snap. The leopard hunted not by force alone, but by feel. It read the antelope's breathing, measured the distance between strides, listened to the slightest change in the wind. It saw the smallest, weakest antelope slightly off the herd. And in that moment, its eyes changed color, from pale gold to the deep gold of the killing instinct. Tagu caught it. instantly. Not with the eyes, but with a more ancient baboon instinct, sensing the movement of a predator when it decides to take a life. The leopard's breathing changed rhythm. Half a second more, and it would charge. And the savannah would be silent again in the most terrifying way. Tagu reared up, shoulders like two slabs of rock, about to fall. The baboons behind him sensed the change before he even made a sound. The tension in the bristles, the slight tremor in the ground, Tagu's heartbeat hitting the air. Then he let out a screech. Not the usual baboon alarm. It was the sound of a herd unwilling to let another life fall before them. A deep, heavy hiss reverberating from its belly and cutting through the air like a sharp knife. The herd of antelopes broke into a run. The savannah broke apart in a whirl of feet, dust, and breathing. The leopard's perfect charge missed its mark in a breath. Its body stopped in the grass, its entire body tensed like an arrow bent just before it left the bowstring. The leopard turned. The look it gave Tagu was more than just a look at a troublemaker. It was a look at someone who dared to get between it and its predatory instincts. The yellow eyes narrowed, and in that narrow slit was an emotion that leopards rarely showed. Jealousy mixed with anger. Tagu looked back. No blink. No retreat. There was a completely different emotion in his eyes, a choking, as if the previous loss still lingered in his chest, and he would not let another life fall in his sight. The baboon behind Tagu stood up at the same time. Not to challenge the leopard, but because they felt Tagu's breath change from anger to something closer to protection. That breath spread through the entire formation like a wordless command. The leopard let out a low growl, a growl that was stuck in its throat as if it did not want the baboon to hear all of its displeasure. It turned away, slinking into the grass, but the last tail swept the ground a little more forcefully than usual, a sign of an open-eyed feud. Savannah was silent for a few beats. Tagu remained still in that position, his breath ragged but not trembling. He knew the hyena could ignore it, but the leopard could not. This feeling was more than a hunch. It was the savannah's warning to those who dared to come between hunter and prey. Baboon had just stabbed a new enemy in the chest. An enemy that did not laugh, not chaotic, but precise, silent, and very patient. One time disrupting the hunt was meaningless. But it only took one time for the leopard to remember. And from that moment on, the savannah was no longer the place of the hunter alone. It became the place where the non-predator baboon began to have an enemy more ferocious than the hyena, the offended leopard. The leopard had just disappeared behind the grass, and the savannah was enveloped in a heavy silence. Not peace, but the tension left by Tagu's screech. The baboons could feel his emotions as clearly as their own breath: anger, defense, and a loss that had not yet healed from the morning. The leopard had retreated, but the last look it threw back sent shivers down the backs of many of the baboons. Baboons were not afraid of the dark, but they knew the leopard's wounds were not easily erased. The wind changed direction. A new scent wafted in. Tagu turned his head immediately. The young males stood up at once, ears erect. They knew without seeing. Wild dogs. Not alone. Not by accident. A pack was closing in from the wind like invisible spears. The savannah changed its rhythm. Tagu took a deep breath, the breath of one who knew the next battle was inevitable. The first sound was not a roar, but the sound of the ground shaking with each quick, steady, cold step like a war drum. The pack of wild dogs emerged from the edge of the grass, 14 short, slender bodies, their ears erect like black blades pointed at the baboon pack. They did not shout, did not threaten. They attacked with the absolute silence of a species that knew it was a real storm. Tagu stood in front of the pack, shoulders raised, eyes narrowed. He was not afraid. But he knew that behind him were more than 100 lives, females with trembling hands, cubs huddled close to their mothers' bellies, and young males trembling with both the desire to charge forward and the fear that their retreat would shatter the whole formation. The moment the two packs looked at each other, the savannah seemed to shrink. There was no more wind, no more birdsong, only the rough breathing of two species preparing to throw their fates at each other. The wild dogs rushed forward. A perfect curve, opening the wings to squeeze the baboons into the middle. Their speed ripped the ground into long, thin lines. Jaws opened, white, sharp, almost glowing in the sunlight. Baboon reacted not with aggression, but with the deep anger that came from the morning of losing his cub, the afternoon of disrupting the hunt, and the feeling of being surrounded on all sides all day. That anger rolled together and burst out in a screech that pierced the red dust, a screech that made the wild dogs stop in their tracks for a heartbeat. And then the battle broke out. The two packs swirled together in a whirlwind of screech, howl, and scraping. There was no longer any distance between carnivore and omnivore, only the primal instinct to protect their pack at all costs. The wild dogs, accustomed to attacking prey that ran straight, were not used to facing someone who rushed at them like a storm from the opposite direction. They retreated. Very quickly. Very urgently. But not in chaos. They retreated in a tight formation. Smart, but clearly surprised. The whirlwind dissipated. The red dust fell slowly, heavily, like ash after a forest fire. Tagu stood in the middle of the churned earth, his back wet with sweat and his own blood. The last stray dog disappeared into the dust, but its eyes before turning away were long, black, unblinking, making the hair on the backs of the baboons stand up. The baboons survived. But the savannah doesn't give anyone a complete victory. The scent of leopards still lingered in the wind. And the wild dogs retreated not because they lost, but because they would return. If you think today's battle was the baboon's limit, you'll be surprised. For in the darkness of the savannah, leopards were still watching, waiting for the moment Tagu weakened by even a single breath. And when the enemy returned, would the baboons still have the strength to stand, or would they become the next prey? Don't miss it. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and get ready for the next part. where the savanna reveals its most brutal secrets.
Where ancient and cruel rules still prevail. A rule written in fangs and venom. When confronted with the fearless, who will be the one to fall? Tanzania. The fierce battle for survival with predators. Located in East Africa, Tanzania is like a giant living book, where every page is a story of survival. The endless savanna fields, interspersed with sparse forests and winding riverbanks, have created a natural stage for countless species to coexist. In many parts of Tanzania, especially the savanna fringes and riverbanks, you can find groups of species with large numbers of individuals. In the midst of that diverse picture, there is a small but vibrant community. Mongooses. Masters in the art of survival. In this chaotic world, unity is their ultimate weapon. Each member has a clear role. It is this collective intelligence and tight social ties that allow them to dream of goals much larger than their own stature. In the distance, a few ostriches stand tall in the middle of the open ground. This is their breeding and incubation season. Just a few days ago, eggs as big as a human hand were laid, nestled in the sand. Mongoose are naturally diverse eaters, from insects, reptiles, to even unexpected things like bird eggs. And today, their target is a treasure, giant ostrich eggs. A task that requires perfect coordination. The mongoose with a small body, a back covered with characteristic grey-brown striped fur, bright black eyes, gently lowered itself into the grass. They rely on their keen sense of smell to find the distinctive scent of the meal. One by one, they approach, moving slowly like shadows, waiting for the moment when the mother ostrich leaves the nest. The ostriches are still busy foraging in the distance, seemingly not at all alert. The surroundings are tense. The mongooses always have to observe. A mongoose boldly rushes to the nest. Success is within reach, but they made a mistake. The mother ostrich has returned. The feast is out of reach. In the grass, the mongoose's eyes sparkle with regret, quietly retreating to their hiding places, waiting for another opportunity. Mongooses usually breed during the rainy season, when food is most abundant. The entire flock will take care of the chicks together. The chicks are born in burrows dug deep underground. After about 2 weeks, they quickly learn how to forage through the guidance of the adults. But in the savannah, life is not only about finding food, but also about avoiding dangerous predators. And for the mongoose, one of the most formidable opponents is the cobra. Ahead, a cobra is crawling towards this side. Its body is long and slender. Each muscle is flexible under the smooth scales of copper and dark brown. When sensing a threat, the neck expands into a characteristic cap shape, both to threaten and protect the head. The deep black eyes like beads do not blink, clinging tightly to the opponent, while the forked tongue continuously sticks out to probe the air, collecting every dust particle of scent to locate. Cobras are masters of ambush. They can stay motionless for hours, just waiting for a single attack. Their most powerful weapon is neurotoxin. The compound has the ability to paralyze the body of the prey. For the mongoose, the ability to resist venom makes them confident in turning snakes into meals. But for the cobra, the mongoose is an implacable enemy. The mongoose lowered its body, taking each step lightly, its paws firmly gripping the ground. Its eyes followed every vibration of the grass in front of it. On the opposite side, the cobra slowly raised its front body, its neck spread wide like a shield, its tongue constantly sticking out to taste. Suddenly, the cobra lunged forward. The struggle only lasted a few minutes before the snake's body went limp and motionless. The mongoose turned its enemy into a full meal. But on this harsh land, even when the meal had just ended, somewhere other sounds were heard. Signaling a completely different appearance, dangerous in its own way. From the edge of the savannah, where tall black shadows were slowly moving, several ostriches were foraging on the open ground. The largest bird in the world, nearly 3 meters tall, weighing more than 100 kilograms, with long legs that can stride nearly 5 meters at a time. The thigh muscles are as big as pillars, helping them reach speeds of more than 70 km/h. This is a weapon of survival. It is now the dry season, which is also the breeding season of ostriches. Before that, during the mating period, the males will choose an open ground, trample the grass and sand to make a nest. They stretch their necks, spread their large wings and perform brilliant dances, showing off their strength and displaying their most beautiful feathers to attract the females. The female stands a few meters away, quietly observing. When she is conquered by the male's flexibility and strength, she will come closer, and the two perform a couple dance. A sign that a bond has been formed. After mating, the female begins the egg-bearing period. They continue to forage to accumulate energy, preparing for the giant eggs, each weighing more than 1 kilogram and capable of supporting a small family in the wild if taken by others. When the time comes, the eggs are laid in a sand nest, and both the male and female take turns incubating them. Most ostriches eat seeds, young grass, leaves, young shoots and juicy wild fruits. Occasionally, they also swallow grasshoppers and beetles. One morning, when the savanna sun is milder, the ostriches spread out to forage again, their eyes always scanning the surroundings for danger. But the savanna is never a place of absolute safety. As they wander the open space, they are unaware that on the far edge, a pair of yellow eyes are watching their every move. The cheetah's black-spotted yellow coat is not a costume. It is an invisibility cloak. Cheetah. Their lives are a series of solitary endeavors. The breeding season of cheetahs is not fixed. In Tanzania, when prey is abundant and the weather is favorable, pairs of cheetahs will enter the mating period. Males are usually solitary individuals or in groups of brothers. They patrol their territories, marking with scent and roaring to attract females. Mating occurs several times, but after that, the male will leave, leaving the female alone to do all the rest. Female cheetahs are pregnant for about 3 months. Each litter usually has 2 to 6 cubs. Smooth grey fur with a silver stripe on the back to help camouflage. During the first weeks, the mother stays close to protect her, and only when she is 18 to 24 months old does the baby leave her mother to live independently. There are 3 cheetahs. Is the fastest predator on the planet, able to reach speeds of more than 90 km/h in just a few seconds. Normally, cheetahs hunt alone, especially adult females. They prefer to target medium-sized prey such as Thompson's gazelles, small gazelles, hares or ground birds. With a slender body and limited endurance, cheetahs rarely choose targets much larger than themselves. But today, things are different. It is not alone. In front, in the middle of the open space, an adult ostrich is busy looking for food. Weighing more than 100 kg, the ostrich can deliver a fatal kick. This prey is something that even the most stubborn predators must be wary of. cheetah's golden eyes still followed its every move. They lowered their bodies, their four legs folded, silently gliding through the sunburnt yellow grass. Their eyes locked on the gap with their prey, each step calculating to keep the wind direction. The ostriches still bowed their heads to peck at the grass, their eyes scanning the landscape, not yet catching the predator's shadow. The air was as tense as a string. Suddenly, they charged. The hunt was quickly over. The strength of their team, they turned the fastest giant of the savannah into a sumptuous feast. A worthy reward for perfect coordination. But the savannah never stopped moving. When the hunger had subsided, the rhythm of life was bustling in a completely different way. The sun gradually sets. The golden light spreads across the Tanzanian grasslands. In another part of Tanzania, life resonates with a completely different rhythm. The sound of horses' hooves is rapid. The neighing echoes in the wind. In the distance, a sea of black and white stripes is moving like living waves. Zebras. Nomadic species of the savannah. They are on a migration journey of hundreds of kilometers to find new pastures. They move in herds, sometimes up to thousands of individuals, combining with herds of antelope and wild buffalo to increase their chances of survival. The black and white stripes on their bodies are not only a sign of individual identification, but also create a visual effect that confuses predators when the herd moves together. But the road to new land is not only through grasslands and thorn bushes. Ahead, a wide, winding river. The river water is murky. Below are Africa's quietest predators. The Nile crocodile. long jaws, sharp teeth, were hiding, just waiting for the zebras to come down. The leader stopped by the bank, ears pricked high, eyes scanning the water quickly. The whole herd stood behind, hesitation making the water seem still. A brave leader went down first, breaking the silence. The whole herd rushed after. The sound of water, the sound of hooves pounding the river. But in the middle of the river, the dark shadow under the water began to move. The crocodile is the largest reptile in Africa. More than 5 meters long. The sound of rushing water and the pounding of the heart filled the air. Suddenly, a crocodile jumped up with a precise bite. It was pulled down in a flash. The water surface only took a moment to return to peace. White foam spread out. The migration must continue, and below the water, other jaws are still waiting. Zebras migrate seasonally. The journey can last hundreds of kilometers to find fresh grass and abundant water sources. They often move with herds of antelope and wild buffalo, forming a giant migration. Not only increasing the chance of survival, but also making it difficult for predators to focus on one target. The victory of the Nile crocodile was not a fluke. It was the result of millions of years of evolution. This reptile is an opportunistic omnivore. Any creature that comes close to the water's edge can become prey. They can fast for months, but when the opportunity comes, the attack will be swift and leave no second chance. The Nile crocodile's breeding season usually begins as the rainy season draws to a close. Mating takes place in the murky water, quietly but selectively. Only the strongest males pass on their genes. When carrying eggs, the female crocodile will find a sandy beach, far enough from the water's edge to avoid flooding, but close enough to quickly return to the river when needed. She digs a deep hole, lays a few dozen eggs, and covers them with sand. During the incubation period, which lasts about 3 months, she hardly leaves the nest. ready to attack anyone who comes near. The small creatures continue to face a harsh world where only a few are lucky enough to survive to continue the life cycle of this apex predator. They are the last link under the water, keeping the populations of other species from growing too large. Tanzania continues to change. On the savannah, each dawn opens new survival stories. Where the strong survive not only through strength, but also through ingenuity, patience and opportunity. From the parched fields to the still waters, every creature contributes to the fierce but majestic symphony of nature. And when night falls, darkness gives shelter to new hunts, new escapes. The cycle of survival never stops. And if you had to choose a survival skill, would you choose strength, speed, or patience? Share your opinion in the comments section. If you love wild stories of the natural world, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next journeys.